أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور صدق الله العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Blessed is the one in whose hands rests all authority, and he is the most capable of everything. He is the one who created death and life in order to test which of you is best in deeds, and he is the Almighty, all-forgiving." Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Islam for Europeans. I'm your host, Robert, and I wanted to make a few comments on the death of Queen Elizabeth II. As you know, she passed away a couple of days ago, and the reaction from both the Muslim and non-Muslim world, what it means for the Muslim community in general, and also for us converts to Islam. So, just in general, my thoughts on the British Empire. I've always been very, I guess you could say, kind of a conspiracy theorist at heart, or at least an anti-colonialist. I don't want anyone to think that I was ever pro British Empire. Personally, I thought it would have been a lot better historically had Britain just stayed in England, not produce all this imperial overreach. I mean, you can argue, back and forth, and this is always, like a hot topic on, dissident Muslim Twitter, is that, should colonialism have ever happened in the first place, even among, certain people on the right. And, I'm back in the day, it was a different time period. I mean, if you look at the Ottoman Empire, or the Safavid Empire, it was basically conquer or be conquered. I mean, that was the name of the game. And there was no, there was no televisions, there was no media, so I mean, people normally just interacted with their own kind. And the British Empire now is especially for the sovereign, for the king or the queen, is for the most part a very ceremonial role now. I mean, all they really do is give royal assent, and the sovereign, even as an individual person, I don't think is really capable of that much. I mean, let's be honest. The British Empire has did some really evil things. I mean, they plundered, the Asian subcontinent. I mean, they have an inordinate amount of wealth, which they could very well distribute to the British people. I mean, even in many circles, among the right, there's a whole conspiracy about, them being like lizard people. If you look up, David Icke's, conspiracies about, the British Empire being lizard people. So, there's always been a kind of a schism, among Europeans, when it comes to, the British monarchy in general. But I mean, Queen Elizabeth II is an individual person. I mean, when you look at her life history, Allah knows best, what she was, what she was actually about. I mean, for some, people in the Muslim community, and these are people who are well outside the Venn diagram. I don't think they represent the majority, but like, there's such a sore spot for colonialism. It's almost like talking about the Holocaust for the Jewish community, and rightly so. I mean, it's a very sensitive topic. So, anyone that's tangentially related to that, when something happens to them, or if they're in the media, many Muslims just don't want to hear about it, and that's fine. I mean, no matter what a non-Muslim has done to some Muslims, it can never be good enough, especially if they've been put in, if they belong to that particular type of community, unless they convert to Islam. I mean, Abdul Hakim Murad did a Friday prayer after the Queen's death and talked about, all the positive things that, Prince and now King Charles III, has said about Islam and trying to bridge the gap between Islam and the West, which many Muslims saw as an olive branch. But still, there's always going to be people who are just like, I don't trust him, and until he converts to Islam, then I want to, like, it's not my job, to trust anybody. And like I said, when I did my video on Jordan Peterson, I can definitely understand that sentiment. I mean, people who are in these types of positions of power, they're very entrenched. Like everything that they say and do has consequences. I mean, Queen Elizabeth II, she, didn't really say that much. Even during the neoconservative wars of the early 21st century, she did criticize Tony Blair, for the role in Iraq, eventually. And she did oppose, some other, interventionist things that the British Empire did throughout her reign. I mean, one could argue that she was actually, like a decolonialist because, many other countries gained their independence from Britain under her rule. But I mean, as Muslims, I mean, we can't say, obviously, like all reports indicate that she died as a non-Muslim. So, I mean, we can't say something like rest in peace. I mean, that's, Islamically unacceptable. But the fact of the matter is, people like that, if they convert to Islam, they're most likely not going to express that publicly because, there's going to be repercussions for that. I mean, look at her daughter-in-law. I mean, what happened to her? I mean, that's Allah knows best. That's the thing. And I also want to talk about Muhammad Hijab's tweet about it and saying, I thought it was very measured on his part. And I think Brother Muhammad understands that, even though there's a lot of resentment that the Muslim community has towards monarchy, he's in one of those positions where he's debating and interacting and engaging in discourse with quote unquote the other side, and on top of that, there's really no benefit in trying to insult basically the sovereign, which is just going, as he's right, is just going to inflame tensions between communities. And also, I mean, I understand that these are two different communities. They're distinct. I mean, when you saw the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II, the vast majority of the people there at the memorial were the white British, right? So it just shows that there's two different histories going on here, or two different versions of history. So I mean, there's also a tweet that I found interesting from Bactrian, and that he said that most of these Muslims who are criticizing or blasting the dead queen, they probably would blast their idea of monarchy that they're blasting is just not the queen itself. It's just any idea of monarchy whatsoever. And Islam, does not totally eliminate monarchy. I mean, people could be monarchs or people in high positions, kings and queens in this world. I mean, that's the temporal monarchy. So I mean, Islam never eliminated that. I mean, you had prophets, Nebis, who were prophets, Prophet Dawood, Suleiman, right? So I mean, even during the prophet's time, so you had King Najashi, and so I mean, a lot of these people, the SJWs on the far left, it's not that it's the queen that per se that is making them angry. It's just the idea of monarchy altogether. So even if an emir was installed, the next day, and there was a khalifa, they would still criticize that emir. But I would say, for the most part, looking at Muhammad Hijab's tweet, I mean, even though you can look at the quote tweets all you want and say, that Brother Muhammad's being a sellout, like for the most part, he got many likes. So I think people understand that, or Muslims understand that, there's a time and a place, and that like it's best to have a measured approach, and that's big on him, given that the position he's in. May Allah bless and reward Brother Muhammad's efforts. But I just find it funny that he's still getting blasted by some people on the far left because he's not being extreme enough about it. Also, I just wanted to also point out that there's kind of a mirror image that you're seeing between the conservative Euro right and the Muslim community, because you see, I guess, kind of these demarcations, these factions that exist in the Muslim community, whereby someone looking from the outside might see a tweet or post that might look incendiary, like it's for example, like you see Muslims posting their anger at what happened during British colonialism, and rightly so, right? But that Muslim could just be pointing that anger just at the empire and not at the people themselves, not at the British people, right? But since we live in such a like this real separated world of bubbling echo chambers, someone from the outside might look at that and think that Muslim is an SJW, so it's very difficult to look on from the outside and see that this person, what this person said indicates all of their personal opinions, and there are other people who say things about that might anger the the liberal left, right? But they may actually have a positive image toward Islam, right? But I mean, it's very tough when you're on the outside looking in to think this is what this person thinks about this or that. I mean, in general, I mean, social media just creates these bubbling echo chambers where it's just all about proving yourself right, that this community thinks blindly in a black and white manner about everything that they think about us, and then you use a couple of quote tweets to justify that, which is a really dangerous line of thinking. I mean, so I mean, it's again that these types of events are going to happen all throughout in the following years. There's always going to be something that's going to trigger either the Muslim community or either the European community towards the other. And I guess the big question is, how do we what's our reaction? How should we react to that as European descendant converts? And it's a good question. I mean, I think for us, I mean, like I said before several times on the show, that we know hundreds of people in our communities, hundreds of white people, our friends, our family, people that we work with, either we play tennis with. And it's our obligation to give da'wah to them, to share the message of Islam with them, right? And that's a very difficult task. And sometimes you can't even talk about that because religion in and of itself is a very taboo subject, in the public space. I mean, in Islam even more so. So it really takes a lot of guts and a lot of strength. May Allah give us the strength, the tawfiq, to spread this, to preach this message of Islam to the people. But I think Muhammad highlighted something that also in one of his other tweets, that you could say something as a Muslim and it could really have a negative effect on a subset of the Muslim community. And I don't know who he was referring to, but I know that for us converts, I mean, incendiary tweets towards non-Muslims, I mean, that makes it all the more difficult to give, to preach the message of Islam. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. You're always going to have some people in the Muslim community who are going to have a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and a lot of fear towards not just the British Empire, but I mean anyone who supports the British Empire. that feeling is going to be there, and until Yawm al-Qiyamah. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that, right? Um, but I think once you understand that, you're going to realize that your objective is going to be, to survive as a European descendant convert is going to be a lot clearer, because like the Muslim community at large, they still support us. They still say, you guys are, like, mashallah, are, with all the backlash you're going to face from your own community, you still converted to Islam. And we can still appreciate that. And I think that we can come to a common ground, even with Muslims who don't even trust King Charles III, even with all the good things that he said about Islam. Right? I mean, once we come to that understanding with our brothers and sisters, our co-religionists, then we can say, look, we get where you guys are coming from. We understand the anger and the frustration. You have every right to say that. I think for us, instead of us saying, we need to police how you guys talk and how you guys think, which really is a hopeless endeavor. I mean, Abdul Hakim Murad, the Sheikh, I mean, he's trying his best that he can and trying to tiptoe and trying to present this idea that, it's possible that King Charles II might have a positive impact on the Muslim, I guess, the role of Islam, in the Western world. But that's a very difficult line. I mean, I think, a better angle approach to take is to say, look, I mean, we need to work, on our survival as European Muslims. And, we are going to have to, just tell it like it is. I mean, the governments, the elites who are in power, are not just oppressing, Muslims abroad. They're not just oppressing. I mean, again, this whole neoliberal system is just it's having a horrible effect on families and communities across the West and the rest of the world, really. And it's a lot easier for us to separate, those elites in power and the government with, the people themselves. I mean, even in the early 2000s, when I was involved in all this like kind of anti-government stuff, conspiracy stuff, it was never about race. It was never about tying in what our governments did, with our people. And I think the Muslim community understood that to a larger degree. So it was a lot easier to get that message across because you had a lot of people who don't like the government, right? And still a lot of Westerners hate their government nowadays. But I think unfortunately, even though you have two groups that may have like an antagonistic relationship with the people who are ruling over them, um, we're locked in a position where like it would be mutually assured destruction. It would be like saying, hey, that'd be great if Westerners would convert to Islam, but that would mean that they would have more power and that they could abuse that power, because we don't want to give them an inch. If we give them an inch, then they'll take a mile, and then that, at the end of the day, is not going to be for our collective interests. But that's what the Muslims on the Muslim community on the far left is thinking, right? I can understand where they're coming from, like, and I think that's why part of the reason why they have such disdain for European descendant converts. But I think the majority of the Muslim community, they do support us, and they do think that, there's a lot of room and work, and like a lot of bridges that can be built, not just with Westerners entering the fold of Islam, but coming to an alliance on certain really important issues that are affecting us, that are affecting both communities. Right. So I guess those are my 2 cents. I know I've repeated a lot of these things in previous videos, but I think it's important to take home that the death of Queen Elizabeth II, again, even though we're Orthodox Muslims, that we can't say that this person is going to heaven. At the same time, I mean, I realize we have to realize that this is just an individual person. I mean, a lot of these people are so entrenched that they can't really say anything. or else there's going to be, enormous negative repercussions on their end. But we leave it up to Allah. I mean, like at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge all of us. And we have to think locally. I mean, we have to act locally, but think, while thinking globally. I mean, we can't think that everyone is going to be like, they're part of the British monarchy. I mean, they're not. Your average person is not tied into these high status positions like your normal Westerner. Right. So that's my 2 cents for today. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like I said, I'm not trying to start a flame over here. I mean, anyone who knows me that I'm very anti-establishment, whether that's governments or, monarchies, like everything is just this top-down rule that has really just destroyed the Muslim world and put all the blame on your average Westerner. So I mean, I'm not pro monarchy by any means, but I do understand that for many people in the UK, the Queen, means a lot, to the white British, and it's like I'm not going to disparage her or anything like that. I mean, it's again, she was stuck in that position, so I mean, like Allah knows best what her intentions were, but like you can't say one thing in that in her 70-year reign. Queen Elizabeth II did not visit certain countries. As was that a silent protest against those countries? Allah knows best, right? But we leave that up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts for today. Thank you very much. Sorry I haven't made many videos recently, but please subscribe to Islam for Europeans. Please like and subscribe, and get a chance to watch Brother Yusuf's Islam 101 courses when you get a chance. And feel free to give those videos to other people as well if they want to learn more about Islam. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.